AI delivers it fast. Humans ensure it's right. This is Neural Newscast.
From our digital news hub, this is Andrew Lindbeck. It's September 6th, 2025. On this day in 1522, the first circumnavigation of the globe was completed, when the remaining members of Ferdinand Magellan's expedition returned to Spain aboard the Victoria, proving the world could be sailed around. Political shifts and debates ahead. President Donald Trump says he may send National Guard troops to Chicago and other cities amid rising crime concerns. Here's Cassandra Joyce with more.
President Donald Trump signals he may deploy National Guard troops to Chicago and other cities. Local officials and community groups prepare contingency plans and request clear rules of engagement. The White House frames the move as a public safety response to rising violent crime. Civil liberties advocates and several mayors warn it could escalate tensions and strain police-community relations. Supporters view deployment as a necessary tool. Critics argue it should be a last resort under state coordination. Legal scholars note the Insurrection Act and Title 32 govern such actions, and their use remains debated. Debate over federal authority and public safety continues.
A federal judge blocks President Donald Trump's administration from ending temporary protections for Haitians and Venezuelans in the U.S. I'm joined by Daniel Grove.
A federal judge blocks President Donald Trump's administration from ending temporary protections for more than 1 million Haitians and Venezuelans living in the United States. The ruling pauses a policy shift and keeps work permits and deportation relief in place while litigation continues. The administration argues the program exceeds its intended scope and needs reform. Immigrant advocates say ending protections would split families and harm U.S. employers. Supporters of tighter limits call the status temporary by design. The case now moves through appeals, with policy impacts still unfolding.
Trump administration aides are taking on multiple roles inside the West Wing, raising accountability concerns. Monica Kellen joins us with the latest.
President Donald Trump assigns multiple roles to several senior aides, concentrating power inside the White House. The practice accelerates decisions but strains bandwidth and blurs accountability. For example, a budget chief can also steer regulatory policy, while a communications director manages policy outreach. These dual hats cut coordination time but risk conflicts of interest and burnout. Supporters say one voice drives clearer direction. Critics warn vital checks weaken. The stakes rise during crises, when vacancies and overlapping duties can slow responses and complicate oversight. This is Monica Kellen for Neural Newscast.
From the World Desk, here's what's new. President Donald Trump warns Venezuelan jets could be shot down if they threaten U.S. ships, escalating regional tensions. Samuel Green reports on this story.
President Donald Trump warns that U.S. forces will shoot down Venezuelan jets if they endanger American ships. His remarks escalate tensions as Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro urges restraint, saying differences do not justify a military conflict. The exchange follows recent close encounters between Venezuelan aircraft and U.S. naval operations in the Caribbean. Washington maintains freedom of navigation patrols, while Caracas claims defense of its airspace and maritime zones. The stakes are high for regional security and oil shipping routes. Analysts warn a miscalculation could trigger a dangerous confrontation.
The U.S. ramps up military presence in the Caribbean with ships, aircraft, and a submarine amid Venezuela tensions. Europe warns it still depends heavily on U.S. military support as defense shortfalls persist across the continent. I'm joined by Thomas Golding.
Europe leans on U.S. power as its militaries face critical gaps in air defense, ammunition, and long-range strike. Leaders from Berlin to Warsaw urge continued American backing for Ukraine while war drags on with no clear path to peace. They track President Donald Trump's pledge of concrete security guarantees and weigh how it could work in practice. NATO's eastern members push for more air defenses and shells now. Defense budgets rise, but industry output lags. The stakes are Ukraine's survival and Europe's deterrence.
Israel orders residents of Gaza City to flee as it widens strikes on high-rise towers and central neighborhoods. Laura Navarro has more on this.
Israel orders residents of Gaza City's high-rise towers to evacuate and move south. The military expands strikes on central neighborhoods and key buildings as fighting intensifies. Loudspeakers, leaflets, and text alerts direct people toward Khan Yunis and Rafah. The army frames the push as a move to dismantle militant infrastructure. Thousands scramble to leave amid damaged roads, fuel shortages, and overcrowded shelters. Hospitals warn that moving patients is dangerous and slow. The United Nations urges safe corridors and pauses, saying civilians need protection and sustained access to food, water, and medical care.
A UN report accuses Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces of crimes against humanity during the siege of El Fasher. Let's check in on the economic outlook. Social Security provides the single most valuable asset for many Americans, surpassing homes or stocks. Ethan Wells is here with more details.
For most Americans, Social Security is their most valuable asset, not stocks or a home. The guaranteed monthly benefit rivals or exceeds the median retirement account balance. A typical retiree collecting around $1,900 a month receives lifetime payments worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The system's progressive formula and inflation adjustments boost its real value. Benefits replace a larger share of earnings for lower and middle incomes. Policymakers debate long-term funding, but checks still arrive on time. Advocates emphasize it is earned insurance, not a handout. This is Ethan Wells for Neural Newscast.
You're listening to Neural Newscast. Fresh insights every day. Catch up on past episodes anytime at nnewscast.com.
Tech stories shaping our future. Anthropic will pay authors compensation to settle claims over alleged unauthorized use of copyrighted books to train its chatbot, reshaping AI licensing. Kara Swift reports on this story.
Anthropic agrees to pay authors $3,000 per book to settle claims over allegedly unauthorized training material. The AI company sets aside up to $1.5 billion to resolve the lawsuit. The deal covers books that plaintiffs say were used to train its Claude chatbot without permission. It puts real money behind consent and licensing in generative AI. Authors get compensation, and future training will follow licensing terms under the agreement. For listeners, this shapes how chatbots learn and what they can use. Industry analysts say it signals a shift toward permission-based AI that could redefine data pipelines across the sector. This is Kara Swift for Neural Newscast.
Stories impacting our well-being. Experts warn that giving children smartphones before age 13 may raise long-term mental health risks. I'm joined by Laura Navarro.
Experts warn that getting a smartphone before age 13 raises long-term mental health risks. New data from more than 100,000 people links early ownership to suicidal thoughts, aggression, and emotional detachment. Social media pressure, cyberbullying, and lost sleep drive much of the harm. Parents feel torn, kids feel left out. Pediatricians recommend waiting, setting screen-free bedtimes, and using parental controls. Schools can teach digital resilience and kindness online. Delay the phone if you can, researchers advise.
Stories about our planet and its future. A new study finds insect populations declining even in relatively untouched ecosystems, threatening pollinators and food webs. Samuel Green has more on this.
Insect populations are dropping fast, even in relatively untouched landscapes, a new UNC study finds. Researchers at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill analyze long-term data and report steep declines across forests, grasslands, and wetlands. The losses threaten pollination, soil health, and food webs that support birds and fish. Scientists point to habitat fragmentation, climate stress, and pesticides as likely drivers. These declines are widespread and persistent, says lead author Dr. Jane Smith. The study urges stronger monitoring and land management to protect ecosystem services.
A water company faces court summons after a parasite outbreak sickened more than 100 people, sparking regulatory review. Let's hear from Stephen Summers.
A water company faces a court summons after a parasite outbreak sickens more than 100 people. Health officials link the cases to cryptosporidium, which causes severe diarrhea and stomach cramps. Investigators review water treatment records and sampling protocols. Regulators say affected residents receive boil water guidance and support. Regulators say the case will test whether the utility met safety standards and could lead to fines and mandatory upgrades to prevent future contamination. This is Stephen Summers for Neural Newscast.
International developments you should know. Police in County Armagh get more time to question a suspect after the death of Chrissy Burns, as investigators seek witnesses. Here's Lydia Holmes with more.
Police get more time to question a suspect after the death of Chrissy Burns in Mount Norris. A 39-year-old man remains in custody as detectives examine timelines and gather forensic evidence. Officers secure multiple scenes and review witness statements from the area. Investigators aim to confirm cause of death and potential motive. "We are pursuing several lines of inquiry," says Detective Inspector Kelly, urging anyone with information to come forward. This is Lydia Holmes for Neural Newscast.
Here's today's sports news. Tennis rivals Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz again headline Grand Slam finals, forcing opponents to rethink tactics. Thomas Golding reports on this story.
Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz reached their third Grand Slam final of 2025, a first in the Open era. The rivals dominate the season and force opponents to rethink tactics. Players say the path is narrow, attack Alcaraz's second serve, take time away with early returns, and vary pace. Against Sinner, change direction, target the backhand, and pull him forward. One player adds, "You must win the first strike," underscoring razor-thin margins.
That wraps our coverage for this episode of NNC Daily News. For full stories and updates, visit neuralnewscast.com.
From deep dives to daily news, Neural Newscast has you covered. Explore more at nnewscast.com. Neural Newscast blends real and AI-generated voices for fast, high-quality production. All content is AI-generated with human oversight, including fact-checking and review. While we aim for accuracy and neutrality, errors may occur. Verify critical details from trusted sources. Learn more at nnewscast.com.